I'm Dr. Bobby Du Bois, and welcome to Live Long and Well, a podcast where we will talk about what you can do to live as long as possible and with as much energy and vigor that you wish. Together, we will explore what practical and evidence-supported steps you can take. Come join me on this very important journey, and I hope that you feel empowered along the way. I'm a physician, Ironman triathlete, and have published several hundred scientific studies. I'm honored to be your guide. Welcome, everyone, to episode 20. Are you happy with your doctor and your doctor visits? If not, what might you do to make it better? This is a really important topic because we can't take care of all aspects of our health by ourselves. We need to partner with our doctor, our doctors, and get their guidance on how to manage our health. Today's episode is going to be a bit different. As you know, I tend to focus on studies in people, not in mice, and very evidence-focused. But today it's going to be a little less about studies and a little more about having spoken to people for decades about what a good doctor is to them and what is a good visit and a productive one for them. And I'd like to share that with you. Please, by all means, provide feedback. Maybe you like this approach. Maybe you don't like this approach. So let me know. I've gotten a number of comments coming to me. They're wonderful. I love them, but I can't respond to them. So if you just click on your website, not the website, your podcast button to send a message, I can't respond to it. The mechanism, it doesn't allow it. But if you go to my website, send me a note, then I can respond to you, and I would very much like to do that. And that's drbobbylivelongandwell.com. Well, in preparing for episode 20, I asked the question, I wonder how many new podcasts, make it to episode 20. Well, it turns out the vast majority don't get much beyond the third episode, and only 10% reach episode 20. And I thank you, my listeners, because that's why I'm still able to get excited and do it, because there are you folks listening, downloading, sharing with your friends, and giving me feedback, which I love. So if you'd like me to continue, please let your friends know, because that makes it even more fun and more exciting to help more people. Well, as you know, I've recently started beginning each episode with a story. So why now do I want to talk about doctor visits and having a good interaction with your doctor? Well, recently, and as I said, I've done this for decades, but recently I've had a number of friends and family and colleagues share stories with me about getting to see their doctor and the experience with him or her. And I realized there's some issues out there. One friend said, it's taking me weeks to see my doctor. And another person said, I heard about this really great doctor. I really want to see him, but he's not taking any new patients, so he won't be able to see me. Other people say, gosh, when I do get to see my doctor, the doctor seems so rushed, and I just feel uncomfortable asking all the questions that I have. A friend recently had months of back and leg pain that really needed to see a spine doctor. And he had to wait months to get an appointment. All the while he had pain. And when he finally saw the spine clinic, he ended up seeing a physician's assistant rather than the surgeon. And he just didn't feel satisfied. It felt like it was just a protocol the physician's assistant was running through. And he frankly had a more nuanced case where the surgeon might have been able to provide some more direct guidance. And probably the worst example of late is a dear friend of mine was told he had metastatic cancer on a Zoom call. Now, this wasn't somebody across the country. This is somebody that could have seen my friend in the office and told him and his wife what had happened by a Zoom call. So these are all some of the concerns that have been shared with me. My daughter, on the other hand, recently found a concierge pediatrician. And this concierge pediatrician comes to the house, so she doesn't even have to take her son, my grandson, into the office for regular visits and such. So, and we'll come back towards the end and talk a little bit about concierge medicine. Well, I ran across a book title, which I love the title. Didn't actually read the book, but I love the title. And it was a general practitioner by the name of Dr. David Johns Madams. And the title of the book is The Doctor Can't See You Now. And I thought, wow, that is becoming more and more true. It takes longer to get a visit. When you get to the visit, you might see a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. The doctor can't see you now. So I want to share with you what I've learned from talking to folks and experiencing sort of all aspects of this over years and years and years and years. So we'll start with some background data and how bad the problem is. Then we'll explore, why would you see a doctor? Because I think by understanding that, it might help you to get to point 3, what is a good doctor for you? 4, how do you find one? 5, how do you prepare for your visit? And if the current situation isn't working for you, should you consider a concierge doctor? Well, let's begin with some data. As you know, I love data. So in the United States today, the average wait time to get a new visit for a primary care doctor is about 3 weeks. Now, if it's an existing visit, meaning you already have seen the doctor in the past, on average, it's about 2 weeks. To see a cardiologist, it takes about 4 weeks. A dermatologist, it takes about 5 weeks. And this can be much longer than this. Depending upon the city and how many dermatologists or cardiologists there are, it can be double or triple this. Only 10% of people get to see the doctor the same day. Now, obviously, if you go to urgent care or the emergency room, you, of course, can get to see somebody the same day, but I'm talking about the regular doctor. Now, if this wait is associated with your annual visit, it probably doesn't matter whether you see them on November 1st or November 18th. But if you're having a headache that's been going on for a bit, or you have blood in your stool, or you found a lump somewhere, you don't want to wait several weeks. You want to make sure that whatever the problem is gets addressed early, or you're told it's not a problem. So waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, depending upon the problem, just doesn't feel right. Now, the data are when you get your appointment and you come to the office, on average, it's about an 18-minute wait in the waiting room until you see your primary care doctor. And once you get in the door, the visits are about 15 minutes. I'm going to come back to this issue, but it's something to begin to keep in the back of your mind. Part of the reason why visits are so short and you have to wait is that your primary care doctor probably has 2,000 patients in his practice or her practice, and you're just one of 2,000. And later we'll do some math and you'll see why this becomes a real issue. If it's not already bad, it's likely to get worse. Many primary care physicians are approaching retirement. They're in their 50s, their 60s, they're getting burned out. It's estimated that by the year 2030, so a scant 6 years from now, we may have 120,000 too few physicians, which of course will make waiting to get to see your doctor longer and longer. And only 15% of new doctors choose to go into primary care. So as we move forward, you're going to end up with more and more specialists, fewer and fewer primary care doctors, and this is going to be a growing problem. Now, why are there so few that go into primary care? That could be a whole podcast episode. But just one simple piece of information is that they make about half what a cardiologist makes. And so if a medical student is thinking about the debt they have and the lifestyle they want, they're very likely to choose a specialty rather than primary care. Yet, we all need a primary care doctor. Okay, that's the background data. Now, let's explore why you might visit your doctor. I think this is a really, really important topic because it will help you understand what matters to you in selecting a doctor or deciding whether you have a doctor that's working for you. And each of the reasons why you might see your doctor has different nuances to it. So, you might visit your doctor because you have a new symptom. Doctor, I'm feeling short of breath. What is it? Should I worry about it? Are there any tests that are needed? So a new symptom. But that's really different from an ongoing problem. You might have high blood pressure, you might have asthma, you might have any of a number of things. Seeing your doctor for an ongoing problem is quite different than how you experience going to the doctor if you have a new symptom. Here, you're going to focus on, the education about my high blood pressure, any side effects I might be experiencing, any testing that might be needed. So it's more of a routine and an educational type of visit rather than a new symptom, which is quite exploratory. Well, on your annual visit is another reason to see your doctor, and you may talk about screening tests, whether your vaccines are up to date. So again, a very different interaction, and the qualities of what makes a good doctor interaction for you are going to be different. You may see the doctor primarily to get a referral. You go to the doctor, you have a knee injury, it's fairly serious, you need a referral to the orthopedic surgeon. Again, a very different approach. Underlying all of these reasons, one of the most important reasons to see your doctor is to establish a relationship. I can't underscore the importance of this. At some point in your life, you are likely to get ill. And I don't mean getting COVID or the flu. I mean a chronic illness. Most of us do. You want to have established a relationship with somebody you know and trust when you begin that journey dealing with a chronic or potentially life-threatening illness. Just going to a doctor when you have this new illness is going to make it that much more difficult and that much more emotionally challenging, frankly. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about why you see your doctor. So now let's think about that as we explore what is a good doctor. Or in this case, I'm focused on a primary care doctor. And previews of soon coming attractions in a few minutes, a good doctor is more than just the person you visit with in the exam room. And I'll explain that in just a bit. Now, I'm going to give you a list of things to think about of what might make a good doctor for you. I'll put that list in the show notes. You're not going to get everything. All the things I list, you're not going to get them all in one package of a primary care doctor. So you're going to need to prioritize and choose the ones that are most important for you. Okay, so the first bunch relate to the person who is your doctor. Now, you have to decide, does it matter if it's a man or a woman? And that's totally up to you. For me, it doesn't matter that much. I do have a man as my primary care doctor, but I'd feel comfortable if it was a woman. My cardiologist is a woman, and I'm comfortable either way. But some people feel that they would like to have a particular gender for their doctor. And that's totally up to you. Okay. For me, and for most people, I want a doctor who's going to have a lot of expertise. They're up to date. They know things. I'll get to this later. There are some doctors that basically, no matter what you come in with, they refer you on to a specialist. Well, I think there's times for that, but I'd like my doctor to have enough expertise to handle a lot of the problems that I encounter. Secondly, very different from expertise. Are they a good communicator? Do they explain things well? Do they listen when I ask questions? Are they focused on me? Now with electronic health records, are they just looking at their computer screen and typing, or are they interacting visually with you? Do you sense they have empathy, that they are really caring about you, the patient, and what happens to you? Here's an important one you may not have thought of. Do you trust your doctor? Can you tell the doctor the truth? Or do you just hide details? Well, doctor, I haven't told you, but I am skipping medications. Why? Because I get some side effects, I don't feel good, or I don't have the money. Are you comfortable and trusting to share that? Are you having sexual difficulties that you might feel uncomfortable sharing? Here's a measure of a trust element. For me, at the end of experiencing something with my doctor, if I have an issue that needs to be addressed, I say to the doctor, what would you do? Either in yourself or in your loved one. I think that's a wonderful question. And it's something that if you feel comfortable asking and comfortable listening to the real answer, it says something about trust. For some people, they want their doctor to have a very holistic or broad view of you, the patient, and that you're not just an organ system or a series of organ systems. Meaning, do they just focus on a symptom and they put out the fire of that symptom, or are they looking for root causes? And that may be very, very important to you. So keep that in mind. And as I said earlier, do they just refer everything? Oh, you got a rash? Here, I'm going to make a visit for the dermatologist. Oh, you're having back pain. Let me refer you on. Again, there are times to refer and times I personally would like my doctor to handle it because it's a hassle to have to go to a specialist. And if you do see specialists, and that may be very appropriate, do you feel like your doctor is the quarterback? The quarterback knows everything that's going on, or should, on the football field. I would like my doctor, if I went to the cardiologist, to make sure they got the results of the cardiology visit. So when I come back to see my doctor, they know what's going on. Similarly, if I see a dermatologist or anyone else. That's really important to me, that they are a quarterback. All right. So these are a number, and look, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some that I think about and my family and friends think about when they say, I really like my doctor. And I say, well, why do you like your doctor? They may go through some on this list. Again, you're not going to get them all, but choose the ones that are important. But when I ask, do you have a good doctor? It isn't just the person. There's also the office itself and the system in which they work. Importantly, is your doctor in network? And are the specialists that he's going to refer you to in network? That makes a huge difference in terms of what it might cost you. And as we'll get to in just a bit, getting the information back from the doctor. About the office. Well, how long does it take to get an appointment? How long do you wait in the waiting room before you get to see somebody? Are you actually seeing your doctor, or are you often seeing somebody else, the nurse practitioner or physician's assistant? And that may be fine for you, or if it's really important that you see your doctor most every time, then that's something you're going to prioritize. Now, between visits, do they have the infrastructure for you to ask questions? Do they have a patient portal where you can get refills requested, lab results? Can you send a question into your doctor? That is terribly important. And when you send in information, do you actually get an answer, or does it take forever and you have to bug them 2 or 3 more times? I find that really important, and that I prioritize quite highly. I mentioned earlier about specialists. If you're in a group practice where all the doctors primarily are in this same clinic or group of clinics, they typically will share the same medical record. So when you see a cardiologist, if it's within that group, then they're likely to be on the same electronic health record, and they can call up, your doctor can call up the results and find out what the specialist was thinking, why they ordered certain tests, why they put you on certain medications. It feels much more holistic if all that information is at your doctor's fingertips. And Financial. Don't overlook the financial aspects of the interactions with your doctor and office. Do they handle the insurance easily for you? Are there large deductibles and co-payments that may be related to the doctor, may be related to your health plan? Is it a hassle just to fill out all sorts of paperwork every time you come into the doctor? Okay, so I've given you lots of things to think about, both from the physician, the person, and also the office. All right, so maybe you're not so satisfied with your doctor. How do you find a new doctor? Well, the standard ways that most people do is if you're in a health plan and you have a network of doctors, you're going to look at the list. Are any of these doctors or any of them located relatively close by? You're going to perhaps look at reviews online through Google or other services that focus specifically on doctor evaluations. You might look at their training and say, oh, yeah, this physician has been trained really, really well, and that's important to me, and that might be something about choosing a new doctor. Here's one that I really like. Ask a doctor friend or a doctor you see, like a dermatologist, if you see a dermatologist, who do they see? Who's their primary care doctor? That is a great way to find a doctor. Now, you might say, well, Dr. Bobby, I don't really know any doctors. Yeah, you might not, but do you have a gynecologist that you see on a routine basis? Do you see a dermatologist? It could be any of a number of people. It could be the orthopedic surgeon you saw for your ankle sprain. Who do they see? That's not a guarantee that it's the right doctor for you, but that's a good way to kind of narrow the field. And I moved to Austin about 10 years ago, and that's exactly what I did, is that I had people I respected in Austin, and I said, who do you see? Who should I see? Okay, now you have a doctor, you're working with your doctor. How do you prepare for your office visit? Okay, now, before you're going to have a successful office visit, it's really important that you understand the other side of the table. Your doctor's view of the world. So doctors are really, really busy. Your primary care doctors, all doctors, but definitely we're talking today about primary care doctors. They have limited amount of time. You also need to understand how they get paid. There was a time 10, 20, 30 years ago that doctors who were primary care doctors made actually most of their money not from the visit itself, but they would do an EKG in their office. They might order labs that were performed in the office. They might do an echocardiogram or an ultrasound. They might do x-rays, and they would charge for each and every one of these services. Therefore, the visit charge was not a big part of their income. But today, primary care doctors, an office visit payment from the insurance company may be somewhere between $70 for a visit and $200 for a visit. Now, they don't get all of that. They maybe get a third of that if they're in kind of their own practice, because the rest of it goes to pay for the nurses, pay for the rent, pay for the equipment, and all those kinds of things. But today, all those other things are done by other people. So they send the blood to the lab. They might send you to a radiology place to get your x-rays. So they're not getting these procedure type things that they used to. So the amount of money that they bring in is going to be ostensibly from the office visit. So the average primary care doctor today makes about $200,000 a year. Now, that'll vary by city. And as I mentioned, cardiologists and a lot of other specialists make 2 or 3 times that. So if you then take the $200,000 a year and you say, well, how much is that roughly per day? It's about $900 a day. Now, for a lot of doctors, they're now on salary. So the equation of how many visits lead to how many dollars in their pocket is a little different. But even if they're on salary, it still has to make the math work. Nowadays, primary care doctors see about 30 patients a day. And if we say an average visit is about $100, that's about $3,000 a day from the visits that the doctor sees. And as I mentioned, maybe a third of it, if they're in solo practice or something like that, might be what they get because the rest of it goes to run the practice. So now you can understand if $200,000 means about per year, it's about $900 a day. That's why they need to see 30 patients a day. If they only saw 15 patients a day and had, a half hour per patient, they're going to make half of the $200,000 or about $100,000. So it's really important for you to understand the doctors are rushed. It's not ideal for you. It's also not ideal for them. But this is the system we live with. And so you need to understand that and work within the system. All right. So how do you prepare for a visit? Given the fact that your doctor is going to be very busy and rushed. Okay. What I recommend is before the visit, write down a list of questions. Okay. Now it cannot be 100 questions because you have your 15 or 20 minutes. So you're not going to be able to make that happen. I think it's helpful if they have a patient portal that you can log into to send the questions in advance to your doctor. Your doctor often will spend a couple minutes looking at your chart before they walk into the exam room. If they have the list of questions, they can scan it and know what are some of the things they need to hear from you. I like to send it in advance, but if you can't, you're always going to be seen by somebody who's going to take your weight and your blood pressure, the nurse, the technician. By all means, give the list of questions to that person who will then give it to your doctor, who hopefully will get a chance to glance at it before they come into the room. Here's another trick. Remember, your doctor only has 15 minutes. Yes, I'd love it if they had 30 minutes, but they don't, by and large. So how are you going to get your questions asked and answered? Well, here's a thought. Before the end of the visit, say to the doctor, Dr. Jones, look, I understand I have more questions and we don't have enough time. Can I schedule a follow-up visit to ask some more questions? Now, for the doctor, it means they can end this visit in a reasonable amount of time to see the next patient. And they know that when you come in the next time, they're going to get paid for another office visit. Now, it might take 2 or 3 office visits to get all the questions you have to ask, but if they're not urgent, that's a way to do it. Understand the doctor's needs to make the visits relatively shorter and work around that by saying, can I come back and see you again? Now, the doctor might say, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Or they may say, look, I just don't have enough time slots in the next few weeks, but, try it out and see what's what. Another thing to keep in the back of your mind, if the doctor wants you to refer you for a test, say an MRI scan or, something else that has a cost associated with it, it's very reasonable to ask, what is that going to cost me? Now, the doctor may not know right off the top of his head because your insurance is going to determine to some extent, what's your deductible, what's your copayment. But it's not unreasonable to ask and at least get some information. You might have to call your insurance plan to find out the specifics, but that can be very, very helpful. The other thing to keep in the back of your mind is if there's a lot of testing or specialist referral that takes time and takes expense, it's also fine to say to the doctor, Doctor, can we wait on this referral or this testing? And if things continue and my symptoms don't get better, then of course we would do that. Now, the doctor might say, no, you absolutely need it right away. Or the doctor might say, no, I think that's a reasonable approach. So again, working with your doctor. All right, before we leave the issue of doctor visits, let's talk about, do you need a visit? My doctor has telehealth visits where we do a Zoom call. And often I can get a Zoom call with him easier than I can get an office visit. And for many, many problems, especially if it's an ongoing problem, like, how's my blood pressure doing? Or I'm having a side effect from a medicine, or, I got this lab result. What does it all mean? A telehealth visit's a great way to go. And again, that may be a way for you to get your follow-up questions answered because the doctor's already examined you, probably doesn't need to do it again. So that's another thing to keep in the back of your mind. Okay, now you've listened to all this and you say, gosh, Dr. Bobby, I really, really understand what a doctor should be and how my visits should look. And God, that would be so wonderful. But I don't have somebody like that. And I've tried and I can't find somebody. Nobody's taking new patients. And this is really tough. So let me throw out an option. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but this is an option. And that's to consider, like my daughter did with her son, a concierge doctor. Now, what is a concierge practice and why might you think about it? I should say my doctor isn't a concierge doctor, but we have a relationship and I get all the things that I'm about to talk to as needed without it being a concierge practice. But for many of you, this is something you may want to think about. So I've talked to you about how a primary care doctor makes money, and there are real limits on that. And that's why they need to have 2,000 patients, and therefore they can only see you for 15 minutes. So here's a different model, the concierge model. You pay a yearly fee to the doctor, and that may be $2,000. It could be up to $10,000 or more. What that yearly fee does is it gives you access to the doctor because the doctor gets this amount of money guaranteed. He or she can have a smaller number of patients. A typical concierge practice may only have 400, 500, 600 patients. I spoke with a concierge physician recently. He has 100 to 200 patients. Obviously, if you only have 100 or 200 patients, you can spend real time with them. What does it mean to be in a concierge practice? In most cases, you can see the doctor the same day. You can have phone contact 24/7. They give you their cell phone typically. You can call them on the weekend at night if you have a problem. The visits are typically a lot longer. Maybe a basic visit, maybe 30 minutes. An annual visit, maybe an hour or an hour and a half. And the concierge doctor may only see 6 to 10 patients a day. They can really spend time with you in that regard. They will be or should be your quarterback. And not only will they check with the specialists after you've seen them, but if you have a good concierge doctor, they know the specialist to see, and they have great relationships. So when you need to see the cardiologist, they can call up the cardiologist and say, Sam, are you able to see my patient in the next few days? And they often can get you in right away. So not only is it seeing your doctor quickly, but it's also getting to a specialist quickly if needed, or getting an MRI scan done rapidly. These concierge doctors often have a wellness approach and a holistic approach because they have the time. And frankly, that's their love of medicine to do just that. Now, every concierge practice differs. You will likely still have some co-payments, some expenses you have to pay in addition to the thousands of dollars up front. I'm on Medicare and I pay, about $8,000 to Medicare for my Medicare insurance. I'm already paying a lot of money. Is it worth it to me if I needed to spend a few extra $1,000 to have a really good doctor as I get older? Absolutely. So again, that you may not have the funds. You may be happy with your doctor. You may be willing to accept the limitations of your doctor and doctor system, but it's just something to consider as you look at your relationship with your doctor and whether it's satisfying or not. Okay, let's net out all of this. There are many factors to consider when you think about, do I have a good relationship with my doctor? Am I happy with my doctor? You may have a long list of things that you would like with your doctor. You're likely not to find somebody who can meet all of them, so you will need to prioritize. I believe you can have a more productive, fulfilling visit with your doctor by making the list of questions, doing the follow-up visits, and thinking about where the doctor's coming from to make the most out of that experience. Do think about a concierge practice if your relationship isn't what you would like it to be. Let me just end by saying, let me know what you think about this episode and about your doctor. Again, this is a bit different. We're not focused as much on studies done in people, but I would love to get feedback whether you like this, because there are topics like this that aren't as focused on evidence, and I'd like to see if this is something that you're also interested in. And as I mentioned at the outside, best to go to my website. That way, if you send me a note, I can answer you. Until next time, I hope we all can live long and well, and I look forward to episode 21 and the ones that come off after that. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to Live Long and Well with Dr. Bobby. If you like this episode, please provide a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. If you want to continue this journey or want to receive my newsletter on practical and scientific ways to improve your health and longevity, please visit me at drbobbylivlongandwell.com. That's doctor as in DR, Bobby, livelongandwell.com.